All right, guys. So we're gonna talk about just a little bit in this episode, a little bit more. There's no screw that. There's no such thing as a little bit, guys. This is fine. This is not financial advice. Oh my god, I almost lost the channel and myself. Um, so yes, this is not financial advice, guys. I'm not a financial advisor. Uh, and a continuance onto the repo and reverse repo of what happened with my journey. So what I do overall believe that obviously when the system saw that all the hedge funds and all the funds were screwed and they had to battle a new strategy. That new strategy was the buy and hold. There's no solution to it, whether short term or long term. There's a solution to it, sorry, short term, which is what they're doing, but long term, there's no solution to it. And here's what I mean by the overall image. When these repo transactions started going up in value, I knew that the funder or the financier to this whole operation of what's happening to us was overall, after all, the feds. The feds were the person that was paying money and paying for the tab to keep screwing us over long enough until, I guess, judgment day comes. Now, look at this pattern, guys. And this is why, again, this is to me, and maybe it might make some sense to you. First security to burst the bubble was GME, and that flipped them on like heels over head. Then you look months later down the line, that's when AMC had its first initial pop. And then after that, everything was normal with GameStop and AMC. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, Bed Bath and Beyond, started squeezing. Of course, they announced that they're going to start buying back shares, or at least 10% of their shares by a certain amount, by a certain date. And after that, it goes back down. Another ones. Let's mention some. Just to remember on top of our head, because there was many meme stocks that did that. Clove had its little run. OCGN had its little run. I think Micro Vast had its little run. All these stocks. Who else actually was? There was a couple of other meme stocks that was right on my radar. It's just I can't remember much now, but I mean, you get my idea. I've mentioned enough. Had all their runs, and then they go right back down. Right now, what if? And this is a question for you, because the answer for it is yes for me. But for you, what if the plan for all this was obviously in the short term, keep giving us money so that we can keep this price suppressed and we can continue doing what we need to do so that we can, keep this down, because we can't handle, and logically, let's think of it, guys. All these meme stocks are all shorted to oblivion. Of course, some much less than other and some much higher than other. But the idea of them going up or squeezing, because they're short, like the fact that they're so shorted but yet they're very sought after and purchased by retail investors, we flip the equation. Now they all are supposed to run. You see what I'm saying here? Or you see where I'm trying to get to? So now, since they're all trying to run, who on God's earth have enough money to pay or fund all that? Of course, we get the idea. Hedge funds will evaporate and everybody will liquidate. But even if the whole entire world was to melt, there will not be enough money to pay out all the investors involved with all this. So they had to come up with obviously different stuff and different gimmicks and plays to try to steer this in a different direction as much as possible before they meet their end. And they were able to to win that war successfully with many other stocks, like the smaller meme stock communities. Many of their following have abandoned the ship, and that right there was like heaven to them, because they were able to get out of those situations. And unfortunately, most of their investors just couldn't stick with it, and stick with that stock. Like some of the ones that I'm very bullish on are like Naked Brand, which was called Naked Brand, but now it's called SEN, SENN ticker symbol. And I'm still very bullish on that because they really didn't have their run besides the January run up, where all those stocks, I mean, remember guys, all those stocks ran up in January. Look, this is why I think the way I think. All those meme stocks, I mean, the birth of the meme stocks was in January of 2021 when they all ran up together. Now, what levels they got halted at and stopped at, forget that. I'm talking to you about step by step. They all were birthed in January 2021. After that, that's when the birth of this. You remember when they took away the buy button, they had to come up with a plan. And I believe this is the plan they came up with. Or like, you have to divide and conquer. You can't let this whole force come at us all at once. You just can't. Now you see it here. You see that, AMC had a separate run. You had bbby, which is Bed Bath & Beyond, have its run up, small run up, not the official what it should go to run up. All those plays had their little run ups, and some plays just got completely abandoned, and that's something that works to their advantage. They want that, of course. They're trying to obviously see after all this time who would still be there and what they have to battle. It's kind of like more than just divide and conquer. It's more like put this hard work on these people and see who lasts. Let them work, and then come back like days or a month later, or a year later in this case, and see who's still working. Probably the number, of course, is always going to be less than what it started with. And that's what happened with other securities. Now, obviously, the one thing that keeps getting stronger and stronger throughout this whole time and movement is AMC. This is why ultimately it is the MOAS, because to me, this is the one thing that people are buying and saying, I would rather see it at zero before I sell it. Now, don't get me wrong. Same thing with GME. But the GME crowd, which I'm in, GME crowd, it's hard for new people to come in and join in on that, whether they're buying synthetics or not. It's very hard to come in and buy, especially that the price is so high. I mean, it is high. It's if you're coming in with a $10,000 investment, you just look at what you can put it on. If you put it on AMC or GME, you get a lot more for your buck with AMC than with GME. Now, what they fly to, that's a different story. At the end of the day, that comes down to the investor more so than what fate is, because we dictate fate at that point, and what we hold to and what we were not willing to let go of before we let any of our shares go, So now backtracking a little bit, going back into June 2021, when many of my personal options were so far in the money, I made this the logical move at that point was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cash out on these options. Again, they're not stocks. I did not touch. Leave the stocks, and I keep adding to my position. But with the options, obviously, I liquidated most of them. I left about 40%, about almost 50% of them. I sold half and left half, and I got screwed on the other half, because the initial idea was that this is the run-up. That's how everybody approached June. I mean, now it's not the same mentality, but when you go back there and you're part of that, you knew, especially for me, when I was like using many indicators and like looking at that time, don't get me started on technical analysis, because that was the very same time that I swore not to do any technical analysis personally for me, until the system is completely fixed, which is when blockchain comes into fruition throughout all the trading markets, which in that time will probably be 23 or 24, if not longer. But until then, I don't care much about lower lows and higher highs and higher lows and all that crap. All that for me, again, it's we're all about events right now in this, and if you were part of a squeeze play. So yeah, so at that time, everybody's leading up to this thing, and we're thinking that this is the run up, this is the squeeze, because the numbers were matching that. But suddenly, at 74, that's when the party got shut and everything went down. And it's like, wow, how did this just happen? And I believe that at that time, this is when they were able to go in and continue. This is when you were basically kind of introduced to something, formally introduced. It was already in play, but you were formally introduced to the black market and the dark pools, basically, in other words, and in the professional term, ATS, and alternative trading systems. So that when we were formally got introduced to that, because in that the crime went to a different level, and this leads us to one big thing. Now we got to tackle the third guy, because the second guy, which is the repo and reverse repo, like today, peaked up at 1,742 billion, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was. Today's transactions was 1,715,000,000, and the record was, if you want to guess what day, was December 31st of 2021, and it was $1,904,000,000, almost $2 trillion, guys, almost $2 billion. So I'll end this video right here, and then maybe I'll go live to talk more about the ATS and what we are to. Why do I feel so bullish? Why do I in my other videos say that this time soon we're really near something? Well, you'll see if you approach the live. Much love, guys.